Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Record Lab podcast. My name is Nathan. I'm a songwriter, music producer, and audio engineer from Toronto, Canada. If you couldn't tell already, we're not actually in my home studio today. We are at Dreamhouse Studio in downtown Toronto. When I was a student in audio engineering college, I took a bunch of classes here and it was a great time. And the studio manager and the head engineer here is actually who we're going to be interviewing today. So I'd like to welcome Calvin Hartwick to the Record Lab podcast.
Great. Thanks so much.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I guess a question I love to ask the guests whenever they come in is kind of like how you got into music. Like, was it growing up that it started, or kind of take us through your evolution with music?
Yeah. So I would say my first steps in music would be when I joined a band with a few of my best friends in high school. Mm-hmm. And we had a blast. We practiced and rehearsed a lot. We played a lot of shows around Kitchener-Waterloo, which is where I grew up. Mm-hmm. We had a rehearsal space that we would go into once a week and both rehearse music and just do general teenage debauchery stuff, you know? And then we all lived together in the same house at one point and turned our living room into a jam space, which was great. So we could rehearse and just be creative at any moment that we felt inspired to or that we wanted to. Mm-hmm. And we would have a bunch of our friends over and eventually start doing these house shows for friends, which was great. And really, really enjoyed that. Eventually we started to get a bunch of songs together and wanted to record our own EP. So we went into, at the time it was Cortland Ave Studios, and I was talking to the engineer there and asking if he does this as like a full-time job or if it's just a part-time side thing. And he explained it's full-time and where he went to school and all that. Mm-hmm. So I looked into other schools in the area and where he went and eventually found OEART. Really enjoyed it there. I took a tour of the school and I got lots of good information of what we would learn and what the school is about and what the specific classes are, and I just fell in love. So I checked out OEART too. It's in my hometown of London. But okay, cool.
Yeah, that's kind of like for me, like I debated going there, but another part of me wanted to go like enjoy the music scene in Toronto. So I was like, I want to experience outside of that too, but I've heard great things about that school.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it's definitely in the industrial side of London, which I think, which was good because I feel like if it was too central downtown, then you're pulled into that nightlife kind of environment where when we were out in the outskirts in that like industrial area, you're just kind of isolated.
Just warehouses.
Just a bunch of nerdy audio kids together doing audio things. And just like you, when I graduated, I was just pulled right to Toronto because I knew that's where everything happens and that's where the industry and the musicians are.
For sure. Yeah. So when you came to Toronto then, like how did you find yourself like building up like clientele or people to work with? Like what type of like jobs were you taking on?
When I graduated OEART, our residence was not typical residence. It was a collection of townhouses that the landlord had an agreement with the school. And so it was 4 or 5 students to a townhouse. And we had to move out, I think it was 2 days after our last exam.
Wow.
And the last 2 weeks of exams were pretty intense in a good way. Like definitely pushed our limits and our knowledge of what we had to know and what we did know. And so once we were finally done the last exam, of course we celebrated. And then it was the day after that we had to move out. So I had almost no preparation of where I was going to go. I knew that I wanted to go to Toronto. My parents were in Kitchener-Waterloo. So a part of me knew that there was a bit of that fallback that I could just go there, but I knew I would just fall back into the same habits of my life in Kitchener when I wanted to start a new one in Toronto as like a young engineer and like aspiring musician and all that. So I put myself up in a hostel that was very tiny. Like there was no room for anything except for like a small 1-person bed and a little desk. There's no Wi-Fi except on the top floor and the roof.
Oh my God.
So it really forced me to get out and be active in terms of finding places to work, places to volunteer, artists to work with, and also a place to live. I knew that there was a few of us that graduated together that we wanted to live together. We just needed some time to figure out where and what areas are good, what rent's like and all that. But because I lived alone in that hostel for a month, maybe 2 months, I definitely made use of my time and I'd booked a ton of studio tours.
Mm-hmm.
This being one of them, as well as a bunch of other great studios, and not with the objective to get a job specifically, but just to see what's out there.
Yeah, just like explore.
Yeah, because I didn't really know. I mean, I did my research in terms of like looking at the websites and the photos and all that, but it's so much different when you go and you talk to the whoever it is, like the administrator or the manager or one of the engineers that you meet with, and you see the space, and you can just chat with them a little bit. And I just got a really good vibe from this place. Dave Plowman was a previous manager, so when I was meeting with him, it ended up kind of being like half tour, half kind of hangout, which is just a good first impression of this spot.
Yeah, because it almost like takes the pressure off a bit to be like, I'm looking for a job here.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Just making things like more personable too.
Yeah, and that wasn't really my goal, was to get a job or work here. Like, I just sincerely wanted to see spaces. Yeah. And one thing, I guess when you are like genuine like that, like one thing does kind of lead into another. And yeah, it was in terms of finding work outside of, or before I was working at the studio, Dreamhouse, I would post an ad on Kijiji or like whatever was the thing at that time. And I got some clients to work with. You never know who you're going to get at that though.
Yeah.
And, but also I was taking on whatever I could get. Some of it was mixing a like string quartet, which was really cool. The quality wasn't really great, but that gave me like a really good beginner's challenge to make it sound good. One of the best things I found that worked for me was going to open mic nights. Because that's just filled with artists who want to also kind of mingle and meet people and who are in their like almost beginning stages, not always, of course, but sometimes of their music career and just learning how to perform on stage and sometimes just trying out different songs live. So that was a really good environment for me to meet different
I've actually
artists.
never been to an open mic night before.
Oh, they're fun.
When I first moved to Toronto, within the first couple of days, I was looking for open mic nights and I just like couldn't give myself the courage to go to one. Yeah. But when I was in LA back in September, I really wanted to find one and just go to one because I feel like the scene there would just be like filled. It's like open mic night, but it's really just like a concert.
And tons of different genres too, because everyone has like one song to play. Sometimes two. I mean, it depends on the place, but Painted Lady has a really good open mic night.
Okay, I've heard of that place
right
before.
On Ossington.
Yeah. Okay, I need to check that out though.
Yeah, if you ever want an open mic night, buddy.
Yeah, that would be sick. I've actually like, I rarely sing in front of people. Like it's like, I love just being like in the scenes and like closed door, like just me, myself and I.
Yeah, I mean, I would never performed in that environment necessarily. I was just going to like watch the performers. Yeah, cheer them on and say hi. And they're like, oh, I loved your song. Or I hated your song. Just kidding.
Wait, no, I did go to open mic night in LA, actually. Now that I think about it, that triggered something in me, but I didn't perform in it, but like I watched like a bunch of people. I think it's called We Found New Music.
Okay.
So like they get like 4 like artists that are in Los Angeles and then they perform, I think Tuesday through Friday, and it's a whole new group each time. Cool. That was cool. I got to network a lot going to that actually. I don't know how I forgot about that. I was like, wait, I have been to one of those.
I mean, everything ends up being a bit of a blur sometimes, especially in the music scene.
Yeah, for sure. When you started working at Dreamhouse or when you finished right out of OYAR, what type of genres did you find yourself working in?
I was very open to working in any genre, which is a very like cliche thing to say. But I think my heart is always like drawn to the full band kind of rock music and like everything under the rock music umbrella for the most part. I did a lot of rap and hip hop. I found that was getting into that genre can be a little tricky sometimes until you find some artists who will trust you and will want to work with you again. And often they'll bring a few friends who are also musicians in their own right. And if they like what they see in terms of how you're vocalizing and like reviewing their performances and how you're engineering and just your overall kind of vibe and the atmosphere, then they might be inclined to come back to work with you. And they might bring friends and their friend might want to come back to work with you. So quickly that world, for me, in terms of what I experienced here, branched out pretty quickly once I had a good little solid network of artists that I was working with. And I love that. And aside from rap, rock and a lot of pop stuff too. Like I really enjoy, outside of working with real instruments and cool vintage gear, I love the clean pop world as well. Just getting like the most pristine recordings and mixes as possible. That took a little bit more time to get myself into that world, as you need to prove yourself a little bit more. Whereas the indie rockers come in, half hungover, and they're just like, I don't know what you do, just record my song. I'm like, okay, cool. Whereas the pop artists, want to make sure that
it's very
know everything. It's super technical.
Yeah. I find like a lot of them too, like can be well versed in the engineering side of things too, because they're like, oh, punch me in right here, do that. Like it's like they know what they're doing too.
Yeah, and you have to keep up. You've got to be one step ahead of them all the time.
Yeah, compared to I find like the indie rock scene and stuff like that, it's mostly like one take recording through, just like vibing out, doing the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I love both worlds. I think the capturing the artist performing front to back in the song, whether it's vocals or instruments or whatever, I think that speaks a lot to the nature of the emotion of the song and how it grows, and especially when the whole band's performing together the full song, they can riff off each other. And when the drummer leans in a little bit louder, and as if the drummer gets a little bit quicker, like ahead of the click track, so to speak, then everyone else can follow that. And it just creates a bit more of a natural feeling, which I really like. And then the other side is, just everything is gridded, clean, punched in, perfect, comped.
That's the side I love working in. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't know. It's something about like that formula that I just like.
Of like the copying and timing stuff. And
like copy and pasting. And just like
it's so incredibly rewarding. I mean, both ways are rewarding because, the first way where you're not so focused on the minute intricacies of everything, then you really get that like passion of the song. But then on the flip side, when you do the comping and the editing and really go in and nitpick every single little thing, the final product is stunning and just so clean and so well balanced and perfect, so to speak.
Yeah. A question I like to ask also is, musical influence wise, would you say like the music that you listen to is reflective of the music that you make?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. When I was making music, when I was in a band, my influences were very much kind of the Mars Volta side of music, where it's, quirky, experimental, noisy, but yet still really clean and thought out. And that was definitely a huge influence in the music that I was creating. When I'm talking about music that I'm creating in terms of being the producer of a project, I would say that the music that I listen to does not necessarily influence how I'm producing a band, because it's all about their influence and what they want, not necessarily what I like, and it's still what I want, but more so surrounded by the music that they're aiming for and the type of genre and sound and feel and stuff like that. But yeah, when I sit down with a guitar, it's definitely influencing me. Yeah, my interest and all that.
That's awesome. Why don't you take us through like a day in your life working as like a head engineer?
So I'm the head engineer of Dreamhouse Studios, as well as the manager, and a producer and mixer as well. So my day can vary quite significantly. On average, it would look like, so let's give today for an example. I came in at 9:00 and I worked with Eugene, who goes by Dr. Draw, who's a really talented violinist. We did 3 songs to add to a 10-song album that we recorded, I don't even know, maybe last year. So a few months ago, we did 3 more songs. And this morning we punched in a part on violin that I just knew, or I hoped that if we took maybe 2 or 3 days away from the song and kind of came back in the morning and tried again, it might just give us a fresh perspective on the part and might be able to nail it and get a little bit cleaner. So we did that this morning and it sounds awesome.
That's good.
Really glad that we didn't just settle for what we got for that one specific part that day. And so they came back in and recorded a bit of violin today. And then I did the edits for that, which included timing some of the beatboxing that's in the song, because it's a beatboxing violin duet.
That's so cool.
And what duo, sorry. And it's actually a really cool project called Nemesis.
That's sick.
And then after the edits on that, I then moved into some mixing. Currently mixing the a Cadence Weapon album that's going to be coming out. I don't think the date's set because we're still in the mixing and finishing stage. So I mixed his album, the last song on the album actually, for maybe 3 or 4 hours. It's coming along really, really well. I'm really happy with it so far.
That's exciting.
And then also just cleaning, just making sure the studio looks good, make sure that everything's
so fair.
in
That's
order.
underrated, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's a part of working at a studio that doesn't really get talked about. Like, sure, the recording that I did with a violinist and the mixing, that's like the peak enjoyment and the best part of my job. But the flip side is before I even did the violin recording, I came in and took the garbages out and just did a sweep and a mop and just made sure that everything's in order and backing up the computer at the end of the night, sometimes waiting for a little bit for that to happen is not the most fun, but still a part of the job.
That's how I feel about my home studio right now. It's such a disaster. Like the camera just sees me facing, but they don't see like my cables and like my cardboard boxes from getting new things just everywhere. It's
don't take a look behind there.
Exactly. If you don't see it, then it doesn't matter. So that's the thing. That's really cool. Another, like a record that you had worked on that I kind of want to talk about is Part-Time Believer by the Strumbellas. Yeah. Can you kind of talk us through like the roles you took on making that?
Yeah, for sure. So that I was primarily, for 5 of the songs, I was the engineer. So we were working with a few different producers. One of them virtually and remotely, which is interesting. And another one who had flown in here to work for a few days. And that was great. I've been a fan of Strumbellas for a long time now. So meeting them for the first time was really great. And especially getting to know them and realizing that they're all just great people who love music and want to make records and make music and really good environment. So we did a few songs over the course of maybe a few months. We started off with the bed tracks. We would do drums, guitar, and bass all together to start to make the foundation of the songs, and then slowly go into the overdub world with additional guitars and violin, vocals, of course. Working with Jimmy, who's the new singer for the band, was great. He adapted to the band really well. He's a really great vibe and just person to have in the room. Really easy to record, and did a bunch of takes, did the comping, made it all sound clean, made it all sound really good.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think it was near the end of the album, Wreckage. I really enjoyed that recording process because it kind of stood out as a little bit different. It's a little more off the floor. It was really raw, and it was just kind of in the moment. I think that day we had finished early recording one of the other 2 songs. It might have been Hurricane. And we had, I think, maybe 4 hours left of time, and we all could have just went home. We're like, we're here. I'm like, is there any song? Like the studio's booked. We got time. We're in the creative mode. Like, is there any songs that are lingering that maybe you want to just use the time to demo out or to record or anything? And it was John and Jimmy that we were here with still, and they had mentioned that they had that song that they wanted to kind of demo out, but also record. Should everything sound really good, and set up a few mics, got them in the room, and did a few one takes of them just performing together. And not only do I actually really like the song, but the performance felt really right. Yeah, they were really into it. They liked it a lot, and then we proceeded to overdub some stuff in that song next time around when they had come back in the studio like a few weeks after, maybe.
Yeah, that's cool that sometimes a project takes so much time to do. Like you said, you did so many different sessions of this working on the same thing. Yeah. And sometimes that's all a record needs is just time to grow on its own.
Yeah.
To really.
Yeah, for sure.
Rather than just doing one complete song in one day, it's it needs time to process and figure things out.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just not focusing too much on one thing for too long. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I've learned here. Sometimes when I'm really busy with lots of different clients, it kind of forces me to think on my feet and trust my instincts a lot more. As if my calendar is packed, it doesn't allow me to live in one song for 2 or 3 weeks to really overthink it. Like a client maybe has booked 2 days for one song. We're in here, we get it done, we make the decisions on the spot and trust our instinct, and then move on. And of course, we can always come back to it if we're unsure of or want to change anything. Then always book time and redo things or punch stuff in or whatever. But that's kind of my favorite way to go: is not overthink it, get in, get out, do your best, trust your instincts.
Yeah, that's awesome. Another record that you worked on by Daniel Caesar called Fruitian. Can you kind of walk us through also how you were a part of that?
Yeah, for sure. So Daniel is a great person, so nice and so humble. He had been working here for quite a while, and his producers Matt Burnett and Jordan Evans would book out the room and work with other artists here and there. But Daniel was definitely the primary artist that they would come here for. And that was mostly for the piano that we have on the live floor. Matt mostly, and Jordan, both love that piano. And I do too. It sounds really nice. And so anything Daniel Caesar related, they would come here, book the room out. We would record some piano and for some of his previous records, as well as Freudian. And it was really cool to see Daniel Caesar get all the recognition I feel like that he deserves as a really talented artist. Because you honestly don't know, like when I've worked with so many talented musicians and artists who also deserve to really blow up and become really well known. But it just doesn't sometimes work out for whatever reason, maybe wrong time or whatever. So seeing Daniel really blow up, I was really happy about that because he's worked really hard as well as our producers and the sound is really curated, and working with Riley Bell, who engineered the whole record. He's awesome to work with. So it's a really great team, really great environment. We recorded all the piano on Freudian, as well as some auxiliary instruments that occur like throughout the record. But that was a fun day. I remember pretty vividly. Matt was primarily playing the piano, and he's fantastic. And just having Daniel in the room, just providing feedback. And every now and then he'll pop in, and it's like nothing's happened between now and then. Like he's still the same person. He's still so nice and always just interested in you and like what you've been up to and how you are and all that.
That's awesome. As far as like his writing goes too, like how would you say that like process goes? Like let's say like Matt goes in and plays the keys. Is he like writing along as the keys are happening, or?
That part I haven't been so involved with. Usually the songs are pretty well like fleshed out before they come in here to record. There was, between two of the songs, there's a key change and the piano ends and begins the next song. So that took quite a bit of finessing to make sure that it sounded good without it just being like a straight up quick key change. That particular moment, I remember we were in maybe like the end of an hour or hour two of trying to figure out this transition, and we're all getting a little hungry and we're like, okay, how can we do this in a logical way that's going to sound good and make sense? And then suddenly Matt just played a string of like 3 chords that just sounded so beautiful together. And going from, I don't recall exactly what the keys were, but transitioning between the two. Yeah. And that moment felt so rewarding. And so you can just hear it all come together, which is great. Just made like everything and all the time put into it worth it. Yeah. That's honestly one of like the best feelings is like hearing all the work that you've done at the very end when you're like pressing the playback and it's just like hearing it all complete. Like it's very rewarding. Yeah. Because it can sometimes feel like you're chasing your tail a little bit and there's no answer because everything is so incredibly vague and there's no, like black and white answer always in music. But when it does click and you can feel, not even see, but you can like feel everyone's energy just rise in that moment. You're like, okay, this is all worth it. This sounds really good. Yeah, that was me when I was listening to the master of my song today because I have ADTR, like the metric AB where you can like switch and compare, and then like I switched back to mine and I was like, holy shit! I was like, whoa! Like kind of went off on that one, but no, it's definitely a great feeling to hear like I can relate to that or anything. It's like, oh, this is good. Yeah. I've gotten a rough mix of a song that I'm gonna mix, and I'll hear the rough mix. I'm thinking like, this sounds good. I'm gonna try and beat this, but they've been working on this rough mix for a while and they've curated it and they've done what they can and they've made the decisions for the song. And like, I'll do my best. If I don't beat it, then, it just wasn't meant to be. Yeah. But I'll work on the song for, a few hours and I won't reference the rough mix for quite a while, like until I feel like my mix is set. And then I'll reference the rough and be like, hey, what am I missing? Like, what did they have that I don't have? And it's such a good feeling when I reference the rough mix and then back to mine. Yeah. Like exactly. Okay. Like I'm in a good spot here. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I find like a lot of rough mixes, the only thing in it that's like making it so bad is just like the muddiness of it. I feel like. Yeah. Well, you lose perspective sometimes. Yeah. Like when it's so muddy, like a lot of the times when I'm mixing, like the way to fix it the best is just getting rid of the mud and adding more high end. And then everyone's like, oh my God, that sounds like amazing. Yeah, it's like my favorite thing to do is just take out 700 hertz.
Yeah.
I hate that. Well, I don't hate anything, but I'm not fond of it.
I don't like it either. And I'm going to talk into the mic because I know on my voice specifically that it's 700 hertz is my worst.
Oh, okay.
That's what I have to pull down every time.
Yeah.
Just get rid of it. It's just bad.
Yeah, exactly. Just boxiness.
Yeah, even on here too, like when I'm running it through the console, like I'm using a Pultec right now and 700 for both of us is just cut.
Yep. Just ducked out.
We don't need it.
Yeah,
get rid of it, sure. Fix it.
Yeah, 200, great. 5K, great. 700, could go without it.
So, yeah, no thank you. Kind of talking about your process making the albums and stuff. What would be your like ideal recording setup? So let's say you have like either a band coming in or artists coming in. Like how would you start recording them?
Yeah, so my favorite way to start a record is having as many of the players together to perform and record all at once. Even if I'm just keeping drums, I'll still, if I can, I'll get the keyboardist in, I'll get the lead guitarist in, I'll get, definitely the vocalist and bassist, so that everyone can riff off each other to make sure that the feel is there, the dynamics exist, the arrangement's correct. Especially because if we're just recording, say, drums, bass, and vocals, and we're not hearing the rhythm guitarist start to dig in when they really want to in that second chorus or third chorus, then the drummer might not match that intensity that's going to happen later on. So if we get everyone playing together, then you know that the foundation of the song has the right dynamics, and even if it's just a slight, like a decibel change in how the drummer's hitting the snare, then that little difference, like all those little differences add up in the end result. So everyone playing together, and then usually the goal is just to keep drums. And then once that's done, most of the time I'll end up doing a bit of timing to the drums. I mean, there's cases where I don't, of course, but for the most part, we're all human. Everyone, for the most part, will rush a fill here and there. So sometimes just kind of nudge those in place a little bit and make sure that it's feeling good front to back. And then I'll record, or I'll over to bass to that. Set up a few bass amps, maybe one or two. We've got a really nice SVT big fridge bass amp. That sounds cool. It's pretty gurgly and overpowering sometimes. There's also a really nice Supro Royal Reverb amp that we have. It's technically a guitar amp, but it sounds really nice on bass.
That's cool.
Really nice low end. We can get some volume of it from it before it starts to distort or saturate at all. So it keeps the lows really clean. And a DI bass as well, because that sounds just clean and nice. And then whatever other overdubs there are. So we'll start to replace the guitars that were in there as like a temporary scratch recording, or piano, strings, or violin, or whatever it is. And then most of the time, if not always, I'll wait until the instrumental is finished in its entirety and almost like mixed to my liking. If I'm the mixer, then I'll try and get the instrumental as complete as possible up to the mix before I record vocals on it. Yeah. Because I feel like if we jump into vocals too soon, sometimes if the feeling isn't there in the dynamics and the cleanliness and the excitement, then it makes a little bit of a difference for the vocalist. Not always. Some people can sing to anything and get a really great performance, but to those who need that extra energy in that backing track to really push their performance, I think it makes a world of a difference. Also, I feel like timing wise, that sounds like hell. Just like if if it's still like the rough mix too, and then like it's not a complete instrumental, just like a vocalist trying to sing, and then all the timing's different too. I feel like that could get really challenging. For sure, yeah. And that's kind of speaking earlier to when I was saying that I'll like time drums after I record drums and before bass. Like I'll do that to the other instruments as well, so that as we record it all, everything is locked into its own place. So once we get to the final, like lead guitar overdubs or trumpet solos and stuff, then they're playing to something that is locked in and is the final product, so to speak, as much as possible. Of course, there's always more to do and more that we can do later on. But if I can do it as we record, like as a mix and edit as I record approach, then it just makes the end result a little quicker, a little more impressive. The rough mixes sound great, and what the overdubs and vocalists are playing to just feel a little more exciting to them. Yeah, I'm curious with recording bands, because I know you said you like getting all of them in the same room, but you just want to record the drums like first, for example. Yeah. a big setup just for drums.
Yeah, like, do you get bleed through the drum mics with everyone else playing?
No.
Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah.
I'm curious about that, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. So, and this is a situation at Dreamhouse anyway, is that we'll have the drummer on the live floor, of course, because it's like the biggest setup.
Yeah.
And we'll have all the drums around the drum kit, the overheads, a couple of room mics. And then the bass player, just for this like bed track recording, I'll run them just DI. So there's no bass amp bleed into any other mic. And I'm not worried about the bass strings clanking or anything, because drums are so loud that it's got to be a really loud sound source over top of the drums for there to be bleed in the drum mics. The biggest offender for that would be guitar amps. Sometimes I'll do just guitar DI with an amp simulator on it. But that's just so, to me, uninspiring. Yeah. Maybe. And that could just be because I don't have the right DI simulators right now. I've been so lucky to have access to Dreamhouse and the big amp collection here that I haven't necessarily grown my simulator collection as much. So what I'll do is I'll have the guitarist plug into a guitar amp up on the live floor so they can dial in a really good guitar sound. And our load-in staircase has a double door system at the bottom of the staircase. So I'll put the guitar amp between those two doors and mic it up down there and of course close each door. So it's in its own like isolated booth almost.
So you're using like every crevice of this place too.
Yeah,
just for that's awesome.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then if there's a rhythm guitar or a lead guitarist, second guitarist that I want to record through an amp as well, just because the amp just feels so much better and it's so much more curated to their tone. Then I'll empty out the closet, the bottom half entirely, and then put a guitar amp in there and baffle that off a little bit, which is cool. So then we have drums, bass DI, which I think still sounds really good. And two guitar amps, they're isolated on their own. And then there's a hallway that I'll put the vocalist in if I want the vocalist to be really isolated. If I think that there's a chance that I can potentially keep the vocals from the live performance, which often can be the case because their performance during the live full band setup is definitely different than when they come back in and it's just them in front of a mic performing, for better or for worse. I would say 9 out of 10 times it's better when they come back in to record vocals. But that one time when they've just nailed vocals day of, isolated in the hallway there, and I'm able to keep it is so rewarding. Yeah, because it's like the first initial like chemistry of it all. Yeah. So rather than, like you said, coming back in on another day and trying to replicate that. And they're not overthinking it. And to them, it's just, they're just recording for vocals, just for drums, just scratch kind of thing. And they're not overthinking it, really digging in when they want to and being quiet when they don't need to be loud and all that. And no, that's awesome to hear. Because I've always been curious about that when people say that like they record bands from like in one take from start to finish. I'm like, how is nothing bleeding through them? Like it's like one isolation. Giant thing. Just finding that's cool. Every little available room that's surrounding the main live floor that I can utilize just like in some kind of way. Like, running the cable through. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I guess now we can get into the part that I love to talk about, which is like favorites. So we'll talk about like favorite like analog gear, plugins, and all the nerdy shit like that. Great. So, okay, this is good because there's a bunch right here. I'll do more close-ups later, but if you could only keep one of these, what would you keep? Ooh, if I could only keep one, I'd probably keep maybe the EL7, I think. Okay. I still never used like a Fatsa or a distressor before. Yeah. I really like the EL7. I feel like it's a huge player or a huge like opponent in my drum room mic sounds. And I feel like the room mics on a drum kit in my mixes make up like half of the drum sound almost. Oh, that's cool. Because the EL7 has a warmth option, which is a de-esser essentially. So when the drummer's really pounding the cymbals or the hi-hats and it gets really loud and brash, then this will de-ess that like brashness of the cymbals a little bit and keep that tame. So we can keep the room mics on the louder side without the whole drum kit starting to get like too bright, because the overheads have the top end. Yeah. And the cymbal spot mics and the snare mics nice and bright. And so I'm not always looking for more top end. I just want that boomy warmth of the room mics.
I've seen Dan Nigro does that a lot. Like he'll run like 2 like overheads through like into like a vintage mixer.
Yeah.
Just to get like that analog like warmth and then lay that underneath like process drums. So like kick samples and that, but then the warmth is being added from like the actual like analog sound.
Totally.
Yeah. And I tried that with one of my tracks one time and it was great. Like it was my first time bringing a drummer in too. And then I got to do it, kind of replicating it in a similar way, like running it through. I think I did it through an Avalon and then tried to get that analog vibe and then mixing it into the process drums already.
Yeah, yeah.
But then when you A/B it, it's like the biggest difference too.
Yeah,
it's just like, it feels like they were so dull before.
That's when we got the API 1608 console. That was a huge game changer for the studio because it allows us to route all of our tracks in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
It's a really clean console. I really love it. If I want to get a little more pillowy compression and saturation from the instrument, whether it's like guitar or kick drum or snare or whatever it is, then I'll run it through the Neve sidecar here and just pump up the preamps a little bit more, and it just gives it a nice little squeeze and it compresses it. And you get a little more character out of the instrument and the harmonics and all that kind of nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
You'll get a similar kind of feel from the API as well. Like I've definitely pushed the preamps on that quite a bit, but my go-to for that warmth would be the Neve for sure. Yeah.
No, sorry, I haven't been here in so long and I'm just looking at the gear like, holy shit. Like I use all of this now.
I'm so lucky to have access to all of this.
Yeah.
It's really great. The Tube Tech is by a long shot my favorite vocal compressor.
Yeah.
I feel like you can hit
I love it. I use that all the time, whether it's recording or mixing. Like I love it.
Yeah, it's nice and transparent. You can go in pretty hard and get like quite a bit. You look at the meter and it's a little alarming because it's moving so much, but you listen to the track and you're like, it sounds great.
Yeah, it does a great job at just like thickening things too and like having that warmth, especially like in the mids and stuff. Like it's very good for that.
Yeah, good stuff. My new favorite piece right now has been the Ampex 600. We just got it modded so that it has a DI in. So we can. So I've been running bass through the Ampex and pushing it, hitting the preamp a little harder to get some of that nice saturation and warmth from it.
Now that I remember the Dan Nigro thing I was saying with the drums, they run through it. It was an Ampex mixer from like the 70s.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 more here that I'll often run overheads through just to warm up the overheads. Yeah, those are popular. 351s.
And then when it comes to 1176s, did you just choose to get the black ones or was it like a preference? Because I know they're all different tones.
Yeah. There's a lot of different 1176s. So Alex Bonifant, who owns the business and studio, he was the one that bought these and got these set up at the studio. They're awesome. I've really enjoyed using them. Of course, I mean, it's a classic 1176. Can't really go wrong with that. So I'm not sure exactly the choice behind it, but they're a really great fit. And the darkness looks sleek.
That is true. That is very true. Yeah, I never noticed the bus compressors up here.
Yeah, the 2500 is awesome. That's one of our newer pieces, I'd say.
I love it. I use it on I typically use it on my mix bus. It's either between the SSL or the API. It just depends what I'm going for and like the vibe of the song.
Yeah, the SSL is on my mix bus and my drum mix bus quite a bit because I find I can clamp down on the snare quite well. I love using it, especially just to glue things together. Like it's great. Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have the plug-in too because you have the mix knob on the, and of course you can back bus drums through here as well and get the mix that way. But it is nice to have the plug-in version. Yeah, I'm curious too because I know some people will do this. Let's say you're like starting a mix, like and you're almost on your mix and you have your mix bus. Will you route it through analog gear to glue it and then send it back in? I have, but I don't usually. I find because there's always I'm more of a. So when I'm recording, I mix with all of the outboard gear. So I'm definitely like most of my mix happens outside of the computer before it arrives at the final stage in Pro Tools. But once it's all in Pro Tools, I tend to then stay in Pro Tools. Just so that I have a little more mix freedom within revisions. And even later on when I'm doing stems for like a remix or a sync or anything, I find if I combine it and run it through outboard gear, like if I'm, let's say, combining all the drums into a drum bus and that ends up being a majority of the drum sound, then later on when I want to split it up, it's not quite the same in the end. But it's a really nerdy thing to say, and it's sometimes such a minute difference.
Yeah.
But I mean, all the little differences do add up.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, like I will run sub bass through the EL7 for the transformer function just to get a little bit more upper harmonic action going on. So I definitely will mix outboard gear, but it's mostly just a track at a time and not necessarily combining everything into an outboard piece. Yeah. Unless I'm really confident and I know that the final result is the final result, then I'll run like a whole mix through the API mix bus as well as the GML EQ. Even then, that's more of like the mastering stage to me, where I tend to leave to the mastering engineer. Yeah. To not kind of step on their work too much.
Yeah, because this is like really technical too.
Yeah, that can get really, really like finite.
Yeah.
Cues.
Out of like all of the instruments in the studio, like if you could only keep one, what would it be?
Probably our Mustang bass, I think. Or the piano, probably the piano.
Or you can do one, I'll make this easy for you. You can do one of each, like a guitar, a bass, and a key / synth.
Yeah, so the synths, I'd probably keep the Mini Moog.
Oh yeah.
I love it so much. The Juno 60 is awesome.
Oh, you guys have See, that's the thing. Like, I never knew any of this stuff when I was here, but like now that I've been out on my own for like a while, I'm like, you guys have this, you guys have this.
Yeah. There's lots of good stuff here. There's tons of flavors.
Yeah,
I find
for sure.
It's a mix between vintage and modern, which is nice because it kind of covers all grounds.
Yeah, I love the Juno.
The Juno's great. It's been here since I've been here, and I've been here I think like 13, 14 years. So I've definitely got my use out of the Juno. So I'm good with that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mini Moog's awesome. Classic synth. Sounds really good. Not often am I like an analog versus digital kind of, I don't really take sides too much. I find they both have their uses, but when it comes to the Mini Moog, I'm definitely the real version over the plugin almost every time.
Yeah, that's sick.
Prophet is really, really great as well, of course. And then the instruments, the Mustang, short scale, flat wound, bass, it's just so good. There's a lot of shootouts that we do here between basses, and for the most part, the Mustang ends up being the choice. It just has such a nice, refined sound. It's nice and thumpy. Being flat, it doesn't have a lot of that string sound of your fingers going between frets, which is nice and can be overlooked sometimes until the mix stage. And all of a sudden you're hearing all that come out. Really nice sound to that. And our Ludwig drum kit, mid-60s, is amazing too. We do have to put new skins on it. I've been a little hesitant to change the skins because every drum session that I've been having with it, the skins we've been able to manipulate them and tune them into a sound that just sounds perfect for the song, because it is a very like versatile kit. But I know soon I've got to change the skins. Yeah, they'll just be too fresh for a little bit too long before they kind of settle back into their sound. Just like guitar strings, I try to not change guitar strings until I absolutely need to.
Yeah, my acoustic guitar I've had since before COVID, like has been missing a string since before COVID, and it's still just not fixed. I'm trying to get my friend to do it for me, but I just like, it's so much work to just do it. I could teach myself, but I'm like, no, like I'm just used to playing with.
If you want to hang out here for a day, like, I'm more than happy to restring it and set it up. Out of necessity being here, I've learned a lot about how to intonate a guitar and how to do a lot of the adjustments and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've got a lot of really great on-hand friends and artists who will come in and we'll pay them to get our guitars set up. And I really appreciate that. But sometimes just in the moment, a guitar, maybe just like the 12th fret is a little flat versus the open. And I'm like, okay, how can I fix that right now? And I've done that so much that I've just become really competent with guitar handiwork.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have the string too. Like I have 2 sets of acoustic strings and just a broken guitar that I'm like, I can't fix it.
Maybe that's the charm. Maybe the missing string is...
Maybe. No, because it sounds like shit. Like the guitar is really bad, but it's time for a new one. But because I don't think it's just the strings. I think like the fretboards are also like really out of place. But I just play guitar for like the sake of like playing, not so much for recording because of that. Because I'm like, it just sounds bad.
Yeah, if you're familiar with it and you're making good music with the instrument, no matter what the shape is in. I mean, the writing stage is different than the recording stage.
For sure.
You can have a wonky instrument if that's kind of your vibe, helping you to get into the song or whatever.
Yeah. Plugin wise, to bring things like a little more digital, what would you say is like your favorite plugin to use?
My favorite plugin to use, I think, would probably be the FabFilter Multiband.
Oh, okay.
I really, really like the sidechain ability that it has, because you can use the multiband kind of like an EQ, and you can kind of use it like a compressor in terms of all the individual frequencies. But it's so handy having that sidechain ability, especially like one of my favorite ways to use it is on the instrumental bus. So all the instruments get routed through one instrumental bus, and then I'll put the multiband on that. And then I'll look at the vocal and I'll find where the lowest part of the vocal is. And that's usually around like 150 to 250, so 200 on average is where the like body of the vocal comes from. And that can get lost in the mix real fast if there's a lot of that frequency range happening within the song, which typically there is. It's a pretty common frequency. So I'll have the vocal routed to the instrumental multiband, and that'll trigger a 200 hertz almost like sidechain compression happening a little bit. So whenever the vocalist is singing, it kind of like it'll make room for the vocalist in that moment. And then once vocalist stops singing, then that frequency comes back in the song. Yeah, which just helps so much. And even outside of vocals instrumental bus, like guitar is routed to the drum bus kind of thing. Like sometimes when a guitar comes in, you just want to calm down the top end of drums just a little bit to make room for that guitar. I've been doing it a lot in the current mixes, dealing with flute and trumpets and strings all together. Sometimes there's like a flute melody that comes in that's playing the same range as the strings. So I just want to turn the strings down in the upper range a little bit to make room for the flute if it's a higher part and all that. So I think that's probably I
need to get that one. I still don't have it, but do you have Pro Q4?
Pro Q3.
See, that's the one I have, but I guess Pro Q4 is just like completely like overpowered. Like it has like the dynamic Q section now is basically like Pro MB because it has attack and release features on it too. So you can literally use it as a compressor.
That's fair. I do. Yeah. I use the dynamic section of Q3 a lot.
Me too.
I haven't been too bothered with the set attack and release because you can change it in Q3. I think that's the addition in Q4.
And like they have like a function that's basically soothe in it too or something like that. I've heard nothing but good things about it. And I'm like, soothe is really good.
That was my first answer in my head was Soothe. So I use it so much. I don't know. Well, there's no other plugin that I know of that will do what Soothe does so well, and it just calms down any resonant frequency that can get out of hand that you might not catch in the moment.
Yeah, no, gotta love Soothe. Like every day I learn like new tricks with it, especially the sidechain features can be so handy sometimes too. Yeah, it's like easy mixing. It's just like it does it for you. It's like
cheat code.
Things. Exactly. But is there like any technique that you learned that like changed your life completely? And you were like, I use this every day now?
Not necessarily. I mean, slowly as I was learning how to mix, keeping like kick, snare, and vocals as my like three loudest elements and mixing everything underneath that. I think that like once I started to really dig into that process, that really helped me keep my like rhythm and lead elements. And it can vary. Obviously it's not always like kick, snare, vocals, but the rhythm elements and the lead element, having them be the loudest with everything underneath it just helped boost my mixes a little bit more without having the rhythm section get too lost. And I mean, that also kind of sounds obvious and goes without saying for the most part, but you know, you're mixing a song and you're excited about the guitar part and the rhythm guitar sounds so good that you pump it up a little bit and the bass sound you got is really cool. So you pump that up a little bit and then you got this really cool organ that you recorded. You got this cool stereo effect. Like, I really want the listener to hear that. So you boost that up a little bit and suddenly everything is louder than one another, and then you lose the vocals, you lose the rhythm section. So then you turn up the rhythm section, you turn up the vocals, and everything's just getting louder and louder and louder and more compressed, and it can just get a little bit overwhelming. So trying to keep my end goal in mind as I'm working with everything. Like even though the organ sounds amazing and it sounds really cool, and I want the listener to hear that, I also need to keep in mind what what they should be listening to and not what I want them to be listening to. And I think that, I guess that's kind of a better answer is learning how to restrain my sounds and my mixing and what's being heard. Because sometimes the best use of the orchestra that I've recorded is just support. You know, the listener may not hear the song and be like, oh man, that orchestra is amazing. It might just be a background, like textural element. And that's okay. I mean, that's the part that it plays, and it might go unnoticed in an obvious way. Like they might not comment on it, but it's definitely getting noticed in terms of it helping the song and making it feel bigger and feel greater in the end.
That's really cool. To kind of like wrap things up with the podcast, like, is there any advice you would give to like any like aspiring like musicians or people who are even people who have been working in the industry for a while? Like, what would you like to say to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say the best advice would be to not hesitate to reach out to anyone who like you aspire or look up to, or just others around you in general.
Yeah.
I think that was one thing that really helped me was communicating and talking to a lot of other, of those who run studios around Toronto and other engineers and artists, and just meeting with them and saying hi, and really helped me gain my own confidence and gain perspective of their outlook versus mine, and just asking them questions and all that. I think there's, and a lot of people do reach out to me as well as a studio owner, as an engineer, and whether they're looking to intern here or they just want to meet and talk. Like, I'm always happy to talk with anyone and meet with anyone. We might not always have an intern position, but regardless, I'll be transparent and I'll say, yeah, like I don't need the help right now because I have that covered. But if you want to come by and just talk and see the space, I can always keep you in mind for like further opportunities and all that. I think that would be the best advice, is just to don't hesitate to reach out. Worst case scenario, they just don't respond.
I know. It's like, I think there's nothing wrong with networking. Like, you can learn so much, especially, we were talking about this earlier, just like getting in the actual environment and like being surrounded by it and learning other people's techniques and how they do things will help you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And just good to meet others. You never know when their help can be helpful to you and vice versa.
Yeah, a lot of the co-writers that I work with now, I met through friends of other co-writers that I've done. It's just like we've just been introduced in like a circle and like that's how Dreamhouse operates basically, is just word of mouth. Yeah, like we don't really advertise outside of the typical Instagram posts, which correlate to Facebook and all that. But yeah, it's a lot of just bands will talk to other bands, or they'll look up where it was recorded, or they'll ask a band like, hey, record sounds great, where was that done, would you recommend it, kind of thing. And that is just networking at its core, kind of thing. Yeah, gotta love it. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much again for being on this podcast. Of course. I hope everyone here learned something today and got to hear some cool chat about gear and a bunch of nerdy stuff. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cool. Thanks, guys. Somebody told me